Uh-oh. Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. I hope everyone had a fantastic Mother's Day weekend. I spent my Sunday with Mom, and that was an interesting weekend. And I think that's all we need to say about that. I just hope everyone was able to spread the love, make everyone feel appreciated. We are going to talk about a surprising topic today, which kind of leads into a stream of consciousness discussion, which would probably stretch way too long for just one show. But let's put the first stake in the ground today and talk about metro areas where prices have actually dropped. And I think you might be surprised by at least one of the locations on this list. The reason why I want to start here is I've already sort of in the back of my head have the next few shows mapped out. Title of this show would be Metros Where Prices Are Going Down. Title of the next show may be Recession 2022, question mark. There's things in the news relating to what's going on with the GDP, and if you look historically at when GDP reaches the point it was in the first quarter of this year, you're either in a recession or starting one. There are things that have been said by different government agencies that now sort of seem to want to softball prepare you for bad stuff happening. But I figured a good place to start would be the metros where prices are down. And we're going to go ahead and jump in. What we're going to do is hit this list. Now, this comes to us from Realtor.com. So it's from the National Association of Realtors. And we're going to go ahead and run through here. And what I would like to do is, at least for the top few, maybe for all of them, give you the rundown on what the average price is in each one of those markets so that you can calibrate yourself to it. It's an area where prices are going down. That may represent an opportunity for you. It's going to depend on how prices are going down. If we see these are areas where potentially we're seeing a free fall situation, obviously you wouldn't want to buy in that scenario. But you would want to keep an eye on it. And once it sort of hits a bottom, that would be an opportunity, right? Whether you're a buyer or you're an investor. And if you're someone who's been thinking about selling your home and you're in one of these areas, maybe it's time to accelerate your plan. And not to do a spoiler here, but one of these cities is in California. And it's not a city that no one will recognize. In fact, it may be in the top 2 most globally known cities across the world by everyone, right? So we'll go ahead and discuss that. So let's go ahead and kick it off. Let's first hit on, I guess we'll do it backwards, right? That's supposed to be the suspense way to go. So number 10 on this list, where homes are falling the most in terms of price, is Richmond, Virginia, is number 10. Now, something else I want to point out here, and this is one of the things I hate about some of these articles that get put out. As I mentioned, this is from Realtor.com, and they do not provide any information on what defines the metro area, right? So I'm a little dismayed by that. I find that to be a little bit disturbing, but we'll take them at their word. I would normally prefer not to do that. But according to them, the Richmond, Virginia metro area, because remember, this is a metro areas, which means it's not just what's inside the city limits of Richmond, right? Now, we're going to go ahead and hit this one. The median list price, and remember, they're using the word list price here. So two things that caught my eye immediately. One, they're not defining for me what the metro area is. Now, maybe if you live in Richmond, you know what the metro area of Richmond is. I don't live in Richmond, so I don't know what the metro area. I live in Silicon Valley. I live in Morgan Hill. I'm sure that there is a concept of the San Francisco metro area. Where does that begin and end? I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. But anyway, what we want to make sure we're understanding here is terminology, because words have meanings, right? So I don't believe that Virginia is a sales price privacy state, and I don't believe many of these others are. But instead of referring to sales price, they're referring to listing price. So while I think that this is a valuable piece of data to understand, I think it's also important to understand that we're not really talking about sales price. Now, if I go and I do a quick search on Richmond, Virginia, just Richmond, Virginia, and obviously that's not the Richmond, Virginia metro area, so maybe you've got enough deviation in the areas that make up the Richmond metro area that it changes these numbers. But if you go and look, you find that the sale to list price ratio right now in Richmond is 102.69%. Right? So in other words, homes are selling for 2.69% over asking price. Now, the fact that list prices have come down is still a valuable piece of data. But it's also important to understand that this does not equal you're going to be able to saunter into some of these markets and with no competition buy yourself a house, because implied in these over 100% list price, sale to list price ratios is the concept of multiple offers, right? We all have to grok that. So, all right. So having said that, and with that little bit of knowledge now tucked in our heads to understand the realities of what's going on, because none of these articles actually really make that point strongly, so I think it's worth doing. In terms of asking price in Richmond, Virginia, median list price is down 3.4%. Other things that could explain this, and this is one thing that was touched on a little bit in this article, is that higher priced homes are simply not selling as much, right? When you, as we've talked about on the last show, and I think the show before that, when you get into a scenario where it costs you more to rent the money, right? That's what a mortgage is. You're renting money. When it costs you more to do that, you tend to adjust your buying preferences lower. So maybe that person that was willing to buy that $700,000 house or $600,000 or $500,000 house now finds themselves pushing lower the amount they're willing to spend. Right? Make sense? So in that kind of a market, you might expect folks who own homes at the top of the range to list at a lesser level because they've been calibrated to this idea, right? That interest rates are now at a point where it's going to be harder to buy higher priced homes. I would much rather have them, and don't get me wrong, as I said, listing price data is absolutely a cool thing to understand because it helps you understand what the expectations of sellers were, particularly when you can then compare it to a sales price. But I would also love to get the sold data. And the feeling I get when I see data like this is the reason they're not sharing the sold data is because it doesn't convey the warm, fuzzy idea that prices are actually coming down. And if the Association of Realtors wants anything, they want the people in general to feel warm and fuzzy about real estate. So this is the kind of article that, without a lot of scrutiny, would say, hey, wow, look at that. Buyers, this is your opportunity to come out and buy. So it's one of those deals where they try to make what they would like to happen by sharing data that hopefully encourages that. So maybe that's just my cynical self poking out, but we'll run with it, right? So what does that actually add up to in terms of list price for folks looking to buy? Well, the average, median, they use the word median, so let's pretend that actually means something. Median is different from average, right? Average is when you take all the numbers and you add them up and divide that by the total number of numbers, right? That's an average. A median is the number that sits directly in the middle of the numbers. So in other words, you pick a number and there are 50 numbers above it and 50 numbers below it. An average can exist anywhere in that entire spectrum. I mean, if you've got a couple of numbers at the top that are billion-dollar homes, obviously the average jumps way up, right? So we're just talking about a home picked from the middle of the pack. Literally the middle. Not the average, the middle. That median listing price is $310,000. So in terms of barriers to entry for investors and buyers, not too horrible. If we want to look at what the average sales price, let's see here. Median listing home price square foot, 194. They're still listing this as a strong seller's market on Realtor.com. And I'm even looking at the Realtor.com website for their data on Richmond, Virginia, which just is crazy. But if we look at what the typical sales price is now, because they do list that, and we'll stick with median, right? They started with median list price, $310. Okay, what's the median sales price? What was the median price on a home that sold? $321,900. Right? So an extra $12,000 is what you're paying for a home in Richmond, Virginia. So in terms of calibrating you to what it would cost to potentially get into the market in the greater metro area of Richmond, that's not a horrible barrier to entry when you compare it to other markets, and some of them we'll be covering here in a second. Let's go ahead and move on. I know I apologize for all the time we've spent sort of leading up to this, all the prep work. Chicago is number 9 on the list, down 3.7% in terms of median list price. And the median listing price was $399,000, for about $400K. And again, it indicates that there are folks who can find some deals that aren't huge barriers to entry. This one-bedroom condo with views of downtown near Dearborn Park neighborhood is asking $185,000. It's been listed multiple times with one price cut since the start of the pandemic. So this is an example they give in their discussion of Chicago. Number 8 on our list, Memphis, Tennessee. Now, I am a fan of Memphis. I think Memphis, I've talked about other cities. Chattanooga, for whatever reason, I've never been to Chattanooga. I've only read about Chattanooga, but I love Chattanooga. If I was to go to Tennessee, Chattanooga would be the first place I would go, and I would look at all kinds of properties. They went fiber optic. The city did fiber optic installations all over downtown, all over the city, so everybody gets fiber, and it really caused a boom in Silicon Valley style growth with high tech growth. And I think that was amazing. And I think it did great things for the city. Chattanooga is right there on the river. And it's a good looking town for me. So I'm a fan of Tennessee in the same way people who've never been to England are like super fans of the royal family, right? They've never been, they've never met any of these people, but they like it. For whatever reason, I like Tennessee. And I've actually had a couple of folks I've interviewed on the show that were fans of Tennessee. I don't think we've ever had folks who shared my passion for Chattanooga, but I think Memphis was on the list, and I think Memphis should be on the list for a couple of reasons. One, low barrier to entry. Tennessee has some communities that are great, robust, diverse. And when I say diverse, I mean economically diverse. I mean there are lots of different businesses there. There are lots of different reasons to be in the city of Memphis. It's not a one-horse town when it comes to the employer, right? There are some cities where the only reason people go there is to go to college or to work for this insurance company, right? So in other words, I like communities, cities, towns that have a diversity of income streams so that if there is a downturn in any one of those areas, they tend to be more resilient, right? When all of your money is in one, there's a town in Iowa, I don't know why I know this, that's just all insurance companies, right? That's all it is insurance companies. So if insurance companies ever took a super big hit, which obviously it's a very resilient industry, so that's not likely to be a thing, but it's very much a one-horse town where that leading industry is the number one industry and the next closest number 2 industry is way down there, right? So I prefer to see a better mix huddling right up there at the top, but maybe that's just me. But anyway, so back to Memphis, Tennessee. Median list price change is a 4.6% drop, with the median listing price of $173,500. Now, remember, we're talking about the metro area, but that is a great list price. I mean, in terms of barrier to entry, you could get into something in Memphis without having to really blow the bank away or go into a huge amount of debt. A lot more homes have come onto the market, according to this article in Memphis. New listings are up 5.4% from the same time last year. Smaller homes are going up for sale. That's helped bring prices down. So an increase in inventory is one of the reasons why Memphis has seen this kind of change. Now, unfortunately, I can't share with you what the median sold home price is in Memphis because that's not reported. It's not data that's provided. So it may be that Tennessee is one of those states where the sales price of your home is private. So it's not something that's published. All right, so let's go ahead and jump to number 7 on our list. And this one might surprise some of you. Los Angeles, California. What people are paying won't surprise you. But the fact that Los Angeles is on this list at all might be a bit of a surprise. Now, according to Realtor.com, the median listing price in Los Angeles is $985,000. So by no means a low barrier to entry. And that is a 5% decrease over the time period that they're looking at here. According to this, given that home prices in Los Angeles are already so unreachable for so many buyers, the hike in interest rates has forced a lot of wannabe homeowners out of the market. However, the farther out buyers go from Los Angeles basin, the more inventory has grown and home prices have at least flattened a bit. Now, that's directly from the article. A quote from a realtor in the area: "I'm seeing a lot of contract cancellations by the time interest rates have been locked into place. We're starting to see some home values taper off. Real estate agents are reporting that bidding wars are dying down and price reductions are becoming more common. Attractively priced move-in ready homes are still receiving multiple offers, but not nearly as many as they were before mortgage rates increased. That's keeping high offers over asking price in check." So I think that's all good news for that particular market. One area they call out here, 800 square foot, 3-bedroom house in LA suburb of Palmdale is asking $344,999, which is very affordable, A, for California and B, for Los Angeles. If we now take that back, California is not a state that keeps the sales price private. And when we go to the same source, when we go to Realtor.com and we look up home values in Los Angeles, California, remember, this is the city of Los Angeles, so it's not the Los Angeles metro area. But if we just look at that, we can see $985,000 is the median list price. However, the median sales price is $1 million. So still on the median, still getting over asking price, but clearly some markets are seeing a reduction in this. So the point I think to take away from this is like so many other things, when changes come, they typically aren't instant. It's not typically you start your Friday with everything selling, being listed at a higher price and selling for a higher price, and then on Monday, suddenly everyone's taking 20% off their asking price or getting 20% below their asking price. This is, I think, one of the very first pins in the map, one of the first milestones that we need to acknowledge as moving us towards a different market. In past shows, I've spent a lot of time talking about pivot points, things that feel important enough or impactful enough that the market from that point on is going to change. Now, clearly, interest rates do that. Interest rates do it in a creeping way, though, right? It's not usually a light switch with interest rates. You'll see a nudge towards different spending attitudes on the part of buyers. You might even see it affecting sellers in terms of what they're asking for their properties because they're seeing the headlines about higher interest rates and acknowledging or being educated on the idea that naturally that's going to affect the number of people who can afford to buy their homes. So all those folks that are living in homes priced at the higher end, the odds are if they had 10 folks able to look at it and potentially buy it 6 months ago, today that number's probably less. It's probably 5 or 6. Right? You're going to see a certain number of people who fall away from being able to spend at the high end, specifically due to interest rates. And then everybody shifts, right? It's not just the folks at the high end, but The folks in the lower end get the benefit of people coming down from the top end because there's a certain point where that movement stops, right? And then there are folks who get priced out of the market way down at the low end. But there tends to be a huddle somewhere down there, a soft spot where people tend to huddle and stay in terms of their price range, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and do the next one here. We've talked about Los Angeles. The next one on our list, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Another one with a not-so-tough barrier to entry in terms of list price, coming in at $220,000 with a 5% drop in median list price. Former oil capital of the world has long offered buyers great deals on giant homes. They talk about a 5-bedroom mansion asking $1.2 million is less than the cost of the 2-bedroom condo in San Francisco. Right now, affordable homes are scarce in Tulsa, known for its Art Deco architecture, and buyers are waiving contingencies. But like several places on this list, and again, I'm reading directly from the article, this isn't my creative narrative here, the city's median listing price has been affected by the uptick of smaller homes coming onto the market. While the price per square foot has increased, these smaller properties are bringing down the median listing price for the entire city. That's helping some buyers get in. So statements like that annoy me a little bit. Price per square foot has increased, right? So nobody buys the median priced home, right? Because there's one of them. You're helping some buyers get in is general dropping of prices. But in the same paragraph, they talk about the price per square foot increasing. So in terms of affordability, I guess what they're saying is for those buyers who have decided they don't need to require a 1,200 square foot home, they're willing to get an 800 square foot home. There are more of those 800 square foot homes coming on the market, so that's good for buyers. And I guess in a backhanded way, it kind of is. Any new inventory is a good thing, so don't misquote me on that one. Any increase in inventory is a good thing. So I'm happy to see that. And that may be a help to some buyers, but in general, I think you're kind of missing the overall point of what needs to happen with a market when that is what you're claiming as the win. So that's I think that's all good for Tulsa, but I think there's actually even more interesting information. So if you go again and you look at Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you find yourself right there on Realtor.com, you look at the real estate market report, you can see the median listing price is $220,000. Median sold home price, $210,000. So even there, they're talking about price per square foot, or they're talking about it still being a competitive market. The numbers we're looking at right now indicate that the median is pointing towards sellers getting less than their asking price. Now, maybe I've got a listener who happens to be a real estate person in Tulsa, and they can explain that that's not the conclusion to come to. But that sure does indicate to me that we're seeing at least a pivot happening in Tulsa that's favoring buyers, that goes beyond what this article discusses. Because when you see a median sold price lower than a median listing price, and boy, I wish we were seeing average numbers here too, or a little bit more data, that sure does sound like an indicator to me that buyers may want to get a little bit more active, or at least start looking in these areas. If we look at, let's see here. Yes, this is what I wanted to see. So the sale to list price ratio is sitting at 100%. And remember, this is sort of the average, right? So that means some people are getting below and some people are getting over, but more people in the median are getting below. But there were transactions that made it up enough so it went to 100. So that's super interesting. That would indicate slightly in buyers' favors on average, but with a move towards buyers. And what's interesting also on this particular market report is they still have this listed as a seller's market. More people looking to buy than there are homes available. But given what I'm seeing in sale to list price ratio, and what I'm seeing in terms of median list price versus sales price, again, pivot point. I think we may be seeing that market changing slowly migrating its way over from seller to balance to buyer in relatively short order. All right. So that was Tulsa, Oklahoma at number 6. Number 5 is Springfield, Massachusetts. This is which is interesting. Springfield, Massachusetts, I thought would have been, I guess it's too far away from Boston to be in the Boston metro area, right? Springfield, Massachusetts, the median listing price is $239,900. The median list price change is down 5.8%. And like we've seen with other communities on this list, it's a little bit more information that needs to be had in order, I think, to get a better grip on what's happening in Springfield. So the first thing to note is median list price listed on Realtor.com for the market report is $239K, basically $240K median list price. Median sold price $240K, so relatively a wash there. However, if you then look at what they're getting on sale to list price ratio, they're actually getting 104.07, so 4.07 on average above the asking price. And this is listed as a very strong seller's market. But what's really interesting is if you look at the history of list prices, the list price took a dramatic jump over the last month. The median list price just rose to meet sales prices. So it's almost like the expectations of sellers over the course of the last month or two sort of recalibrated to what the market has been doing. So labeling this one as where metro prices are going down is a little bit listing prices, maybe compared to, I don't know what, that might be the case. But from what I'm seeing here, I'm not sure how this one makes the list, to be super honest. And days on market is down at 60, which is not its lowest point. Its lowest point over the last year was April of 2021, where it was 56, which over the last 2 years is really the lowest ever, going back 3 years. So not sure why this one's on the list. I don't see any pivots happening here that would get my attention, frankly. How it managed to be this high on the list is kind of weird. It's number 5. It's right there in the middle of the pack. Let's go on to the next one, which is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Despite what you might say, I've actually heard some good things about Pittsburgh. I've talked to a few folks who've moved there and are super happy with the move. So I've never been to Pittsburgh, but some people have great things to say about it. I just think of it as a steel town, which is probably either wrong or super old info in terms of the steel industry having kind of collapsed a while back. Now, the median list price in Pittsburgh is $230,000, with the median listing price change being down 13.7%. So let's take a closer look. According to some of the description here relating to this news item, house hunters in Pittsburgh have been struggling to get properties under contract. Recent interest rate hikes have weeded some buyers out and have deflated a bit of the pressure, but competitively priced homes are still receiving multiple offers, often from folks who are moving to the area or moving back from other parts of the country. Skip, because that's dumb information. Given the competition, it is a bit surprising that listing prices have decreased. However, according to a local agent, he's seen a lot of absentee landlords throwing their rental properties onto the market to capitalize on the heat. And I think that's something else to keep in mind. Those listings are often a little less expensive and provide more affordable opportunities for buyers to become homeowners. Okay, so that's the poop in the note in the story. Let's look at some of the real numbers here. So the median listing price is $230,000, which is what is listed in this article, but the median sold home price is $235,000. So obviously that's higher. If we look at what, where is it? Here we go. The sale to list price ratio is at 100%, meaning clearly, since we're seeing the median price is higher, there's some folks getting more, some folks getting less, which would, again, and this is a dynamic to be aware of. If this is what you're seeing in your area or area you're interested in, it tends to mean that in that metro area, we're seeing a lot of variation in sub-communities within that metro. And that's always been true, right? But when you're at a pivot point, some areas get subjected to that shift sooner than others. So I think of them as canary in the coal mine. So for those of you who've been listening to my podcast for a very long time, you know that there are a variety of communities that I look at as canary in the coal mine communities. So one of them is Las Vegas because it's such a one-horse town in terms of what goes on there, right? There's really one reason to go to Las Vegas. Another one on there is parts of Phoenix that I'll look at just to get a feel for early indicators of things that might be coming down the pike for other communities. Now, if we look at the median listing price versus median home price on a graph here, and obviously you can't see that, expectations of what people have been listing for have been above home sold prices for a long time. So the recent change really is not that listing prices have gone down. That's not the big story. I mean, if you look at this, list price has been above sold price going back to 2019. So it's only literally within the last month or two that sold price, median sold price, has been higher than median listing price. So I think that's burying the lead in Pittsburgh. I don't think the lead is metros where asking prices or list prices have gone down the most. At least on this particular report, they do acknowledge that it is slightly a buyer's market in Pittsburgh. I would say that if Pittsburgh is a market you're interested in, the various sub-communities, this looks like actually a pretty good place to potentially invest, just from the data I'm seeing here. This would, in doing my due diligence, if I were looking for places to invest and looking at this, I would say, okay, there's nothing here I am seeing that says I may as well stop looking here. I should go ahead and take the next step and get more granular in my search. So that's my take on Pittsburgh. That's my hot take, my super hot take on Pittsburgh. Number 3, Detroit. Detroit is a tough one, man. Detroit has so much going on, but let's go ahead and hit it. Median list price, $75,000. Median listing price change down 15.4%. So in a community, a city that's already super hard hit, according to them, this is what's happening. Let me give you some of the salient bits here. Already struggling with the loss of auto manufacturing, Detroit got hit hard by the Great Recession, exacerbating a multi-decade exodus of residents. But the story of America's favorite comeback city has changed in the past 15 years. It started with more artists seeking cheap housing who wanted to see Motor City revive to its former glory. Then developers and prospectors came to inflate real estate prices in spite of its still dwindling population. But many locals can't afford those homes, especially with higher mortgage rates. Meanwhile, the number of new listings has increased by 6.7% year over year in March, which is unheard of in most metros. And that means buyers don't have to bid quite so high when there are more options available. Those who are looking for a deal and don't mind putting some work in, check out the many fixer-uppers on the market. There's a 3-bedroom brick home listed for $59,900, marketed as an investor special. So now that we've got that blurb that's left us with a impression, let's go ahead and look at the actual report for Detroit. And not too surprisingly, we're seeing, yes, $75,000 is the median listing price for a home in Detroit. The median sold home price is $54,500. So substantially less. If we look at, it's obviously an extreme buyer's market. Sale to list price ratio is 91.67. So obviously people are getting less than asking price, and that's borne out by this. The median listing home price is almost substantially over what homes end up selling for, and we already discussed that in the numbers above. But for whatever bizarre reason, in December of 2021, something worth millions and millions of dollars must have sold, because there is that in that particular month, the median home sold price was $182,000. No, that wouldn't make sense. Yeah, it was the median home sold price was $182,000, while the listing price median was $74,000, basically $75,000. But for an awful long time, I'm looking now going back to November of 2019, actually in May of 2019, I'm seeing that for the majority of the time, list prices have been higher than median home prices. So there are an awful lot of challenges relating to dealing with the consideration of Detroit as a potential investment. I do not know Detroit well enough to make a determination. I would say that, like so many other investors I know, these are opportunities, right? When things are at an extreme low, that's when you go and you look at where the best opportunities are. And I don't think that is incorrect for Detroit, but I think one of the problems is, what is the future for Detroit? What's going to happen in Detroit that makes it attractive for businesses, that makes it a place where people will now go instead of leave? It's been in a funk for an awful long time, and we're not seeing anything particularly strong coming in. And I'll be honest with you, a community of artists may increase the hipness or not. There need to be other things, right? So an interesting corollary to this, right? We talked about Boise, Idaho, and I read an article recently about how Boise, Idaho is the most overpriced market in the country. I may actually even do a show on that. But that was a combination of already a halfway decent economy, but now the hipsters came in and a whole bunch of gentrification went on, and I think that kind of fed this weird boost in prices. But I've kept my eye on Boise. I first alerted you guys to Boise, 4 years ago? In terms of places I was looking, that was on my short list of places I would not mind investing. And it's turned out to be a pretty good idea, at least if I took my own advice 4 years ago. But watching prices increase, I still have running searches on Boise that it amazes me how much I've seen prices increase in Boise. And I think about a year ago, I started thinking things were a little overheated in that particular market. Still places where you can find great deals in Boise, but you have to be very careful, I think, in your shopping there. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Let's go ahead and finish this off. We only have 2 more left. We've got Rochester, New York is number 2 on the list. Median listing price $149,900, with median list price change down $1,700 or 17%. Excuse me. Rochester's housing market has been red hot since the summer of 2020, when buyers were in a frenzy attempting to snap up the few listings that had come onto the market, and folks who could suddenly work from anywhere were moving in. Let's go ahead and look now at the actual report for Rochester. And as we see, if we look at the details here, yes, median listing price is $149.9 thousand, but the median sold price is $175. If we then look at where folks are in terms of sale to list price ratio, in other words, how much above list price are folks tending to get? They're tending to get 9.09% because homes are selling at 109.09% of list price. Median sold prices for homes have been way above listing prices, again, going all the way back to May of 2019. And in fact, the amount above asking has been insane at some points. Now, it's narrowed a little bit. A really big gap between the two was in June of 2021, where median list price was $150 and median home price was $180. They came the closest together in January, where it was listing price of $139.9 and a median home sold price of $152. But now we're right back to $175 as the median sold price and $149.9 as median listing price. So again, burying the lead on the number 2 community, in that whatever may be happening with asking prices, and I'm honestly, in terms of asking price, I don't see that there's been this big drop. Maybe compared to the same time last year, they're thinking in those terms, but this tells a completely different story. The story that's being told by this article is, hey, come on out here and buy in this market because asking prices are down. But obviously the competition here, and by their own admission on the market report here that they're promoting, it is pegged at seller dominated in terms of the market. So I don't see that as something feeding the primary point that this article is trying to make. Now let's go ahead and go to the number 1, Toledo, Ohio. I like Ohio. Never been to Toledo. Been to a couple places in Ohio. Median listing price, and I love this because of it's a very low barrier to entry for everybody. $115,000 is the median listing price. Median listing price change down 18.7%. Toledo has some of the not great luck most Rust Belt cities have experienced over the past few decades. The city already had major job losses in the 2008 recession. Then the closure of the Jeep Cherokee plant 10 years later put 3,700 more workers out of a job. Builders stopped building homes. By the time a new Jeep Gladiator plant opened in 2019, there was a huge lack of homes on the market, which caused home prices to go up. While bidding wars are still common, it seems prices are starting to cool down. Unemployment is higher in Toledo than the rest of the U.S., so home prices can go only so high before residents get priced out. So, all right, we've got the spiel from the article here that's trying to sell us on the idea that this is the number one town to think of when you're thinking about where are the cities and they're saying the headline annoys me. Home prices have begun falling. Here are the cities where they're down most. That is a lie. That is not what this is a list of. This is, according to them, in the data they're providing, a list of homes where asking price is down the most. And I would argue that in many of these cases, even that's not horribly true. But let's go ahead. Let's take a closer look and see what we've got in terms of Toledo, Ohio. Okay, so $115,000 median list price, right? Median sold price $128,500. They're getting 99.1% sale to list price ratio, which is interesting. So that indicates there are definitely some areas within Toledo that are worth considering. Now, unfortunately, I'm using the consumer version of Realtor.com here, so I can't overlay crime statistics. But I'm willing to bet that so there maybe noise will give us. No, noise isn't going to do it. It wouldn't surprise me if we suddenly discover that a lot of these places is that a $2,000 property? Yes, it is. It's $2,888, 4-bed, 2-bath, 1,800 square feet, 4,800 square foot lot that looks really tough. It's in Old West End between Glenwood Elementary and Scott High School. Don't know what to do with that on Delaware Avenue. But that's stunning to me. Here's one for $24,000 right off the river. You would think stuff closer to the river would be more pricey. But anyway, it is still listed as an extreme buyer's market on this site. I don't think that's wrong. In terms of calibration, for whatever reason, they only have home sold prices going back to June of 2021. So I don't know if the policy in the state changed or what. But if we look back, we can see that the listing home prices overall have been above what homes actually sold for up until September of 2021, where homes sold for over what they were being asked for. And then that trend stopped in December of 2021. And then just this month, last reported month of March, again, we saw sold prices go above list prices. So again, even for the number one property, the takeaway is not this is where you're going to find maximum affordability. If you take into account the actual markets, that's not what we're seeing. It's not what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is a rise in sales prices. What's the low point? Since January of 2022, we are ramping up and sales prices are going up. Now, I'd love to be able to compare this to past years and see where that goes. But it's not telling the story that I think they think they're telling. Are these still good tips? Are these still good starting points for you as an investor or someone who's looking to relocate? Absolutely. Take a look at these, see what you think, get a feel. You always need a starting point, right? And it's much easier to start with an article like this than to throw a dart at a map and then check the community where that dart lands. So in any event, I hope that's been useful. We've gone through the top 10. We've looked at the data that they're pushing, and we've looked at the real data that lies underneath. And what's funny is we used a consistent source. We used Realtor.com across the board, and I still don't get who wrote this. Should we shame the author of this article, or will there be no name on it? I don't recall seeing a name on it. Nope, there is. Sarah Ventiera wrote this article. So I'd love to have a deeper conversation with some of the folks who put this together to get a better. There must be a logic to it, right? I'm obviously poking holes in it with their own data in terms of trying to keep it in line with the spirit of the headline. But whoever put this list together and whatever criteria they used, claiming the criteria they used is supposedly listed, right? When they list listing price and listing price change, you'd think that was the key thing, but it's not. It's not the real story for most of these. Okay. So that covers the list. As always, the goal here is to leave you with more information on the table than I took up in your time. I hope we accomplished that. We're about 45 minutes in. I apologize for the longer than is supposed to be normal show, I guess. It's like an old school. It's way back to the olden days, back when I used to do hour-plus long shows. I hope it was valuable for you. If you are interested in buying or selling real estate in the Silicon Valley area, obviously we didn't talk about that in today's show, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help any buyers, sellers, or investors reach their financial goals, their real estate goals here in Silicon Valley. And if you'd like to get your hands on some pretty good tools for searching, head on over to soldbyrobert.com. I've got a great tool for you to figure out the value of your home. It's right there on the front page. You don't have to scroll around. You just input the address of your property, and it'll give you a automated value estimate. And in my experience, this one's a little bit better than most. So feel free to check it out. Of course, a hands-on person coming in and doing a real market analysis is always going to be more accurate. But this is a great starting point. It's a great place to put a needle on the value map to figure out where your home might be. So feel free to take advantage of that. And if you want to start a home search, same page, soldbyrobert.com. It's right there, right next to the Get a Home Value Estimate. Just start inputting what you're looking for, and you can start your search immediately. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and I'll talk to y'all next time.